All right, well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Khari Garvin, and I have the pleasure of serving as the President and CEO of United Way of Greater Greensboro. And on behalf of our board of directors, as well as our staff, I want to welcome you to our Theories of Change, the Centennial Series. We are so excited that you have joined us today. And we are even more excited to hear from our panelists in just a few short moments. But before we get started, I want to let you know why United Way of Greater Greensboro brought everyone together today. Just a few days ago, on March 1st, your United Way celebrated its centennial anniversary in this community. That's right, 100 years. And every year since March 1st of 1922, our mission has centered on making this community better. In fact, our work has always focused on the importance of bringing the community together to address its greatest needs. And while leadership and community needs have changed over the years, our mission to help the people of Greater Greensboro has remained the same. This mission has always been led and defined by volunteers and caring people in our community. And when the caring people of our community ask us to address a need, we convene and rally our community and its leaders to tackle the issue head on. Such was the case a few years ago when this community informed United Way that poverty was the issue we needed to address. Now, prior to the economic impacts of COVID-19, over 57,000 people in Greater Greensboro were living in poverty. That was before the pandemic. 1 out of every 4 children in Greensboro was living in poverty. There are neighborhoods in our community where over 40% of the population has lived in generational poverty for years. And as a community, we must do better. At United Way, our strategy for ending poverty is grounded upon the research-based integrated service delivery approach. Our theory of change for combating poverty is based on the integrated service delivery model, which connects 4 key areas of service and support. Today, we will hear from 4 well-respected community leaders who represent those 4 key areas. And we believe each one of these areas is critical in helping a person transition out of poverty. We also believe that helping someone achieve educational success is key. And here with us today, representing that area, is Dr. Sharon Contreras, Superintendent of Guilford County Schools. We believe helping someone live a healthy lifestyle with ready access to get health care is key. And here with us today representing that area is Dr. Mary Jo Cagle, CEO of Cone Health. We believe that helping someone achieve financial stability, especially through family-sustaining employment, is key to ending poverty. And here with us today is Brent Christensen, CEO of the Greensboro Chamber of Commerce. And finally, we believe that expanding people's access to basic needs such as food and shelter and clothing is key to helping people on their journeys out of poverty. And here with us today is Eric Aff, CEO of Second Harvest Food Bank. Now, these dedicated leaders are doing great things across the community. And today, we are here to listen, to learn, and to discover our shared hopes of a future without poverty. Today, we will discover the power of working together as a community. And I'm here to tell you, when we work together, great things really do happen. So let's just take a few moments, please, to watch Tamisha's story, and I think you'll understand what I mean.
I lost my parents at a young age. Going into adulthood was rough. I didn't have all the information that I needed. Me wanting a better future for my daughters, I decided to make sure that I had a job, and I didn't know what direction to go in. I was looking up stuff online, and I came across the Family Success Center.
The United Way's Family Success Centers, to me, is a holistic approach to providing services to families. And so when individuals are engaging at that level and you're providing those critical resources that are needed to mitigate child care and transportation assistance, and you're assisting them with, utilities in some cases and connecting them to other resources, that's taking a holistic approach in ways that public systems just weren't built to take, but in a very meaningful way.
Thanks to the family success, I am working in the medical field.
It's been an honor, to collaborate with the United Way's Family Success Centers in serving Tamisha and her daughters. Collectively, we've been able to provide employment and training resources to her that now enable her to create a better opportunity in life for her daughters.
Later on, I want to do RN and eventually get my house, let my kids have the house that they always wanted, or they always talk about, I should say.
So I believe that the community should support and rally around efforts of the United Way of Greater Greensboro, because the agency, one, has a demonstrated track record of really moving a needle on some critical issues in our community. They have a very dedicated and talented staff that is committed to understanding community need, community plight, and developing solutions. I believe that the United Way does a tremendous job at aligning, pulling in partners that are designed to eradicate poverty and to support families in ways that are going to move them out of generational poverty.
My oldest tend to surprise me all the time. And one day she told me how she looks up to me and how she's proud of me. And it hits hard because I know I never had the mother to look up to, and to know that I'm doing an awesome job and my daughter feel like she wants to follow me. So to hear that was the best thing ever.
My name is Chris.
My name is Tamisha.
It's time to put our collective efforts into building a community that benefits all of us.
Local children,
Families and adults need your support.
you can make a difference.
Visit unitedwaygso.org,
To learn more,
take action, and make a donation today.
Tell you what, that video never gets old. Tamisha is just one example of what happens when we work together. People in our community are facing barriers that are perpetuated by systems that often do not work together for their benefit. It is our responsibility to do what we can to provide resources and supports that make their transitions out of poverty as easy and streamlined as possible. And that is why we are hosting today's meeting. So let's get after it. All right, so please, first of all, help me welcome our panelists with a virtual round of applause, please. Please help me do that. Thank you. Today, we're going to start off by asking each of our panelists to answer a few common questions that we have set. We want to answer, we do want to answer a few of your questions as well. And so please, at any time during our broadcast today, submit a question in our chat box, and we'll do our very best to address it after I lead our panelists through our set of common questions, okay? So please remain muted and courteous during our event today. We don't want the background noise to be competing with the thoughtful responses of our panelists, but we will begin right now. So here's our first question. I'm just going to throw this out to the group. We'll hear from everyone, and whoever just wants to kind of jump in, feel free to do that. But would you please outline for us what the top 3 challenges you are currently working to solve, and how is poverty impacting your ability to solve them? Who wants to go first?
I'll start. I'm happy to do that, Khari. So our top challenge are our workforce challenges right now. Those have been exacerbated by the pandemic and everything that's gone on with the pandemic. And how poverty impacts those things, of course, educational level and what people are able to have access to based on what they face through poverty. Tanisha's story is a beautiful example of that. And because in healthcare, the requirements for many of our jobs have certain educational levels that we need. Though we have entry-level jobs that have a different level of education that are required. But right now, there's a huge nursing shortage, and so that's a big challenge for us right now. It's the largest nursing shortage that I've seen in my career that's started in 1990. So it is a big challenge for us. The other challenge that we're seeing is with gas prices increasing. Many of our employees that want to work, would like to work, are having difficulty making it to work because of the cost of travel. We have employees that come from all over Guilford County, but also who come from Rockingham County, Alamance County, even some employees that come from Virginia. And you can imagine this is making it quite difficult for them. So when you put the thought about the price of education, and we actually offer scholarships once employees enter to help them get that higher level of education. So we try to do that, but there's that entry place that people need to meet. Then the cost of travel to and from work and having access in their neighborhoods to education, to travel if they don't have an automobile. And then all of the pressures from the pandemic that have been very difficult for people. Those are the things that are really putting pressures on us in the workforce. A second problem we're working to solve right now is around health equity and the social determinants of health that put pressures, that create the health equity issues. We have really been drilling down on those issues and looking at where do we begin. And as we do that, of course, healthcare has lots and lots of data. So the answer for us is not do we begin, it's where to begin. And social determinants of health are an obvious place for us to begin. So that is work we must do. And obviously, poverty has a big impact on that. And really, one of the sayings that the research has shown us is your life expectancy is affected more by your zip code than by your genetic code. You were in your opening remarks talking about there are zip codes, communities that have 40% of people living there that have been in multi-generational poverty. Well, we know that's true. And as we look at our data, we can tell you those zip codes. And we know the multiple admissions to the hospital, multiple visits to the emergency rooms, and yet those citizens don't have primary care physicians. And so one of the pieces of work that we've begun to do is to look at, okay, how do we provide access for care? How do we identify the social determinants of health that we could begin to make a difference of? And it's multifactorial. And so we have just begun to try to identify what are the steps we could do today. One of the sayings I tell my team, you eat an elephant one bite at a time, and this is surely an elephant. But what are the bites we can take today to make a difference? And so that's one of the big problems that we're working on. And then the other big problem that we're working on is the rising cost of healthcare. With supply chain issues, with inflation that is increasing the cost of purchased drugs, not only for you, but for us, supplies. How do we then deliver, and I'll call it a product, a service to all of you who we serve, and do it at a price that is affordable? And it is one of those big, hairy problems that we keep trying to solve, because our costs are going up as well. So I would say that's important. And how poverty is important in that equation is North Carolina is a state that's not expanded Medicaid. So the people who are affected the most are those people that fall in a gap, who we often I think too easily call the working poor, who are working without benefits, sometimes working 2-3 jobs, And yet when they have a medical crisis, come to see us and have no coverage. And they rely on us to find some way to affordably cover their care. And how do we do this in a time when, just like all of your businesses, our costs are rising? So how do we find ways to get unnecessary cost out of healthcare and try to hold that, what we deliver, the cost of that, as flat as possible?
You've laid out a good number of things. I appreciate that. I believe that these are going to become themes for us, but you touched on, the shortages with, personnel, whether it's nursing staff or lack of access to primary care physicians, social determinants of health and how poverty's impacted that, supply chain issues, and on and on. I think we're going to hear more of this. The question on the table, we want to hear from our other panelists. Question on the table: what are the top 3 challenges you are currently working to solve, and how is poverty impacting your ability to solve them? Who wants to go next?
Hey, I will. And first, thank you for the video. I had not seen that, and I was thinking it's too early to start crying this morning. Yeah, so it's just a wonderful video and inspiring. I would say in Guilford County, we're working on many challenges that my predecessors have worked on, that superintendents across the country have worked on, and we haven't solved these issues. But all of the issues are impacted by poverty, as well as just the long-standing inequities that are so baked into the culture, the climate and practices of our schools and communities, that they're invisible to many people because they're just the way we do business. First, I have to agree with Mary Jo. The issue of staffing is reaching crisis proportions. So while there are individuals in all the classrooms and we're able to, for the most part, get students to school and to serve them food, many of these individuals were not trained to be in education. So we have hundreds of lateral entry teachers who are deeply committed to children, and that's half your battle. But they did not go through schools of education. So, they have to learn on the job. And that's not how it was even 15 years ago, 10 years ago. So this is an ongoing struggle as we're trying to make sure that students are prepared for college and work and can participate in our communities. So this is an issue. Not having bus drivers to get students to school is an ongoing problem that can't be resolved by increasing the wage by $1 or $2. This is years of state underfunding of schools. So as we seek to improve the life and learning outcomes of students, we're then in this situation where we're in the aftermath of 2 full years of disrupted learning and the trauma of an ongoing pandemic that, according to the New York Times coronavirus tracker, has impacted 1 in 5 residents in Guilford County and 1 death per 490 residents in Guilford County. And that means our students are deeply impacted by this. And I'm proud of the work that Guilford County Schools has done. We were the first in the state to open a school for first responders, so that the children of first responders, so that they could show up at Cone Health, they could go to work every day. We wanted to make sure that students ate, so we opened our sites, and the community helped us with that to make sure students were receiving food quickly. But we risk losing an entire generation if we don't accelerate their learning and attend to the mental health needs. And I would say of all the things we have struggled with, the mental health supports, we just can't seem to wrap our arms around this, our minds around this, because we did not have an infrastructure for that in the state or in our school systems. And we've been giving funding for this, but we don't have the mental health clinicians to take positions. I would also say that the issue of crumbling schools.
Get something up.
Okay, the issue of crumbling schools continues to be a problem in Guilford County and across the nation. I believe there's $200 billion of infrastructure needs for public schools in the country. And as we all know, here in Guilford County, it's $2 billion. We have a $1.7 billion bond issue and a sales tax increase on the ballot to renovate, repair, and replace our crumbling schools. But not only will it address this issue, we are trying to prepare students for the workforce. So by creating schools that address, that are healthcare schools, focused on healthcare, focused on advanced manufacturing, focused on computer sciences, we give students an opportunity to leave Guilford County schools prepared for high-wage jobs. It also helps us in trying to break up these hyper-segregated schools across our community, specifically in the Smith High School area, the Dudley High School area, and High Point and the Andrews High School area. By building these new schools that offer choice and career preparation, and by creating dual generational programs for the parents of the students to also attend these programs at night, we believe we can break up this hyper segregation and generational poverty.
You've laid out a lot too. This is rich. I want to keep it going, and we have many questions to get to. So, but I want to make sure that on this first one that we hear from Eric or Brent or Eric, whoever wants to go next. Question on the table: what are the top 3 challenges you are currently working to solve, and how is poverty impacting your ability to solve them? Thank you, Dr. Contreras.
Happy to jump in, Khari. Appreciate it, and thank you for this opportunity. I think what Dr. Cagle and Dr. Contreras have shared is right on point, and there's parallels in our world as well. But I'll hit on the key of why we even are here. It's to provide every member of our communities consistent access to healthy food, and so that's the challenge we think about every single day. And the issue of poverty is very complex, as has already been highlighted here. And it's not just about dollars, but that is part of it. It's transportation, it's systems that have not worked for us, whether it's because of institutional racism or just poor design or what have you, that we have to get serious about. The other thing is really providing career paths for individuals with difficult work histories. And I know Brent and his team and the many members of the chamber are focused on this and figuring out. We've got a lot of members of society we tend to push off to the side once maybe they made a decision that wasn't ideal early in life, or maybe even in the middle of life, and all of a sudden we create a bunch of barriers for them to be able to have success, which hurts us all. And we don't want to see any family damaged by that situation, which leads to really the third one, which is really public policies that work for us and aren't working against the ability for people to achieve their potential, or even simply help them to get ahead. There are far too many public policies that we need to address that do not entice individuals to be able to grow and to develop, whether it's what Dr. Contreras said about how we're funding schools, whether how we've made decisions about not expanding Medicaid in North Carolina, but it also includes things like the benefits cliff, which is a big issue that people make decisions about job advancement because it doesn't make sense, because public policy around housing, childcare, healthcare work against them when they are trying to step up. So those 3 areas, again, access to healthy food, creating better career, more career paths, as well as public policy. Those are the 3 things that are first and foremost on our mind.
Excellent. I mean, again, thanks for sharing. You're just picking up these points that you're sharing. Those 3 points: access to healthy food, the public policies that certainly have an impact. Kind of heard that in some of Dr. Contreras' remarks as well. I knew these would become themes very quickly. Brent, what say you?
All right, thank you for inviting me and having me. And I don't want to be too redundant here, but I don't want to be too flippant about this either. But the the three issues that we're working on as a chamber, and you hear this echoed throughout the country, are workforce, workforce, and workforce. We've had some great success, some wonderful announcements over the past couple of months about job creation opportunities with a mega site project, couple of mega site projects. One, the Toyota battery manufacturing facility at the Greensboro Randolph mega site. The other, the Boom Supersonic project. But we have to be real careful as a community to make sure that 5 to 10 years from now, we don't look back and we have the same number of jobs then that we have now, because we haven't been able to meet the workforce needs of those two companies without them cannibalizing other businesses in our community. And so, the goal for us is to make sure that we're meeting those needs and we're having a true additive effect rather than, again, just churning up employees that are already here in our community. And so, how poverty affects that, I think Mary Jo hit on it very well, right? I mean, we're going to need folks that we're going to have to train internal to our community. They're going to have to know about and have access to those educational opportunities. It was great to see Chris Rivera in your video, because Chris is going to be a huge part of making sure that we're able to train those employees. And oh, by the way, I didn't mention the Publix Distribution Center, which is getting ready to hire 1,000 employees in Eastern Guilford County. So having that access to those educational opportunities. Mary Jo also hit on it, transportation. Some folks who need these jobs, who would love to have these jobs, aren't necessarily going to have the transportation to get to them, whether that be a vehicle. I mean, Mary Jo, you talked about gas prices. Yeah, that's one, but even if they own a vehicle, right? And we need to start talking about what do we need to do system-wide, transit-wise, because I promise you, there's not a bus that runs from Greensboro down to the Greensboro Randolph mega site right now. Heck, I don't think there's one that runs out to the Publix site right now. And so, internally, we need to start talking about those things. And then in order to make sure that we've got enough employees, we're probably going to need to see more come from outside of our community. And then you start to get into housing costs. Is there going to be a place for these folks to live? Are we going to make the public policy decisions to have those housing units in place when they start to arrive? And so, we've got great news. With all great news comes some additional opportunities down the line. I'm not going to call them challenges, but opportunities. And the good news is, I think everybody's starting to talk about this, and we're starting to see really good collaboration coalesce around these opportunities.
I think I love the optimism, first of all, with the opportunities versus challenges. Appreciate that, Brent, but also bearing down on the workforce and really what the needs. What I'm hearing you say in your comment is that really need to be thinking about this at least in two ways. Number one, having a prepared and ready workforce, number one, but then also having the supports and infrastructure to help that workforce get to these jobs, right?
That's exactly right.
I appreciate those comments. You guys are lighting up the chat box, so we'll get to those new questions based off of things that you've said now. We'll get to those later, but let's move us to the second question that we have prepared for you all. And again, just jump in where you want to. But the next one is, so we've talked a bit about, the challenges you're facing. Obviously, poverty is sort of a common thread there, but what are you doing well? Talk to us about the successes. What do you think you're doing well, in spite of the opportunities, to address the impacts of poverty in your work? Anyone want to highlight anything or things that you think you're doing well?
I'd be glad to. Our strategic plan and our daily work centers on equity and accelerating learning, but we also focus here on closing the racial wealth gap. And we're very focused on that. And the board is focused on that as a whole. So this is all manifested through our investments in professional learning for adults, the $4 million annual investment. When I got here, we did not invest a single dollar of the general fund into the development of our staff. There's a $3 million annual investment in improving curriculum so that students can read, they're proficient in mathematics, and they're also ready for the workforce. They're prepared. So there's new advanced manufacturing curriculum, for example, computer science curriculum, so that students are leaving the schools prepared for the workforce. And we fundamentally believe public education is transformational. I don't think there's anything that is more powerful than a great education, as we think of all of the issues that my colleagues on the panel have raised. But while we're fighting to end poverty, I think it's important to note that this has to be done as a community. It's nothing that the school district can do on its own. The health system can't fix itself on its own. We really have to think about collaborations. And I've been so grateful, particularly to work with Brent, Christensen, and Pat Chapin of the chambers, who understand that fundamentally and are trying to get businesses and others to engage with the educational system. And I think because that has happened, it's why we were successful with the first bond. It's why we have partnerships of putting clinics in our schools now. So we're taking care of the health needs of students. They have also helped us with just raising awareness about compensation. And we know to address poverty and the racial wealth gaps, we have to address the compensation of our employees in Guilford County schools. And we think we've made a lot of progress with that. And certainly with our MWBE contractors, of the $300 million, 63% of that has been awarded to MWBE contractors. And that will have a huge impact on our community. So I think we're making good progress, but seeing this as more than just making sure students can pass a state test. It's about how do we make sure we transform their lives, the lives of their families, by working with other institutions and agencies to strengthen Guilford County.
Excellent, excellent. And so just a couple of things I want to highlight here as we hear from the rest of our panelists. So number one, I want to thank you, Dr. Contreras, for also in your remarks just now emphasizing the point about how to be successful in ending poverty, no one entity can do it alone. And that certainly is part of our theory of change. We often talk about the cumulative effect of the sectors working together to really move the needle. So thank you for that. And just to help our attendees with the acronym there. So you talked about the MWBE. I'm assuming that's the minority with women in business and enterprise. I'm assuming, right? So I just want to make sure that we clear the acronym there. So who's next? What are you doing well in spite of the opportunities or challenges that are out there? What do you think you're doing well in terms of ending poverty? Anyone?
I'll go next. So I absolutely agree with Dr. Contreras' remark. This has to be a team sport or we won't be successful. So I am proud of the stand that our board and our group took to move forward with a living wage. And we did that several years ago and have continued to address that. And so our minimum wage is at $15, and we continue to up that from year to look at where that needs to go. So that's a step and a stand that we took several years ago. I mentioned earlier our work around social determinants of health. That's an area where we have partnered. I'm glad to see Eric on here with Second Harvest Food Bank because they're one of our partners in that work. And we have philanthropic donors, a family in the community. This is their passion, and they've donated. And at our new Women's Med Center, we have the Brito Food Bank and Education Center, where we have a market with healthy food for women and children to access. And we have nutritionists that talk with them about healthy ways to shop and prepare food. But also with Second Harvest, we do mobile food banks going into food deserts to be able to make certain that people are able to shop for healthy food throughout the city. So that's very important to us to make access to healthy food available. In partnering, talking about partners, we partnered with the county to build the mental health urgent care centers. The county provided the capital to build that, and we do operate them. We provide the staff and the things needed to operate that. And as Dr. Contreras mentioned earlier, that is a ever-growing need, especially through the pandemic. And we've provided an additional place to receive that care, and in a place where there's less stigma. You don't have to be taken to the emergency room. It's a place where your family or whatever services are necessary can go there. So increased access for everyone. And we also have developed a transportation services for people. If we now have a way to screen people who were missing appointments. We started in oncology because we saw one of our issues with health equity there. And we realized it was one of the reasons was because people couldn't get there, that had transportation issues. And so we worked with a variety of partners to arrange that we would go and pick people up and bring them back and forth to their apartment. It's a simple phone call that we can do. And now that has spread through many of our services when people, back what we were talking about, Brent, when people don't have means for transportation and it could interfere with medical treatment. So really getting to how we make certain that people can stay healthier longer so they can work.
This is good. And again, I mean, these are significant things that we can get excited about, that in spite of, to use Brent's word, in spite of the opportunities, right, that are out there, there's still some important things that are happening, right? So underscoring a couple of yours, raising minimum wage, right? As we talk about ending poverty, certainly there's an economic piece there. So that's good news. You talked a lot, Mary Jo, about the community collaborations that you are a part of, and then of course the addressing the transportation gap. Brent, you want to go next? What do you think? What do you think is going well, or what do you think you're doing well?
Yeah, I talked a little bit about our successes the last time, right? We've had some great job announcements, and the key to these job announcements as we're going forward is to make sure that there are announcements in terms of the fields and the job descriptions that are career opportunities, that offer the opportunity for people to make a long career, to be able to support and raise a family. These are projects that offer average wages in the $60,000 and $70,000 range, so well above our community's average. But also we've worked with both the city and the county, with the city of Greensboro and Guilford County, to make sure that as we're incentivizing these projects, that there's a minimum of $15 an hour wage that we're looking at for any job that might be incentivized in our community. And it's good to hear Mary Jo say that that's where they're headed. I think quite frankly, in our community right now, it's really hard. It'd be really hard to hire somebody with any ability or talent for less than $15 an hour. But we're not going to incentivize those jobs either. But the key is making sure that we continue to raise the community's average wage, and again, the ability for people to live here and raise their families here. So we've had great success, and we've had success in jobs that I think are going to be, transformational for many when they get these jobs for their families going forward. And that was ultimately the goal of the mega site. And it's now ultimately the goal of all these projects that we're working on, is to be able to be not only transformative for our community, but transformative for the people who get these jobs as well.
Good comment. And again, not lost on me what you said in the first round of comments as well, where you talked about sort of the balance between, okay, so, the promise of these new jobs coming is wonderful. And the quote that I wrote down from you is that we have to be careful that the business, that they're not cannibalizing other businesses, right? I mean, so that these jobs are really being made available and being filled by new talent rather than sort of stealing, if I can use that word, talent that's already in place, right? I think that's a very insightful comment.
Well, and looking over the top of your head, you've got a great goal of 3,000 households by 2030.
Yeah.
In our community right now, through the Community Foundation of Greater Greensboro, we've got a goal to have 60% of our workforce have either an advanced degree or a certificate to be able to fill these jobs. So 60% of our workforce, we'd like to have that by 2030.
That's
and
right.
that all fits into the entire network that we're talking about here today.
Works hand in hand. Eric, what are your thoughts? Well, what's working well in terms of the battle of poverty?
Yeah, I think there's three ways we look at it. One is what folks have talked about is internally, and we're pleased with how we've moved also wages here towards that $15 an hour level. And I think we have about 3% of our workforce that's in the 14.50 range, that everybody else is above 15, and the rest of those folks will get above 15 here by mid-year. But also a key piece of it is we've moved everybody to make sure our entire workforce has, who are full-time, a full benefit package. That can, really hamstring a family if they don't have good coverage in a number of areas, especially healthcare. So that has been a priority for us to make sure we protect and enhance that where we can. So internally, want to take care of the team so we can turn around and take care of those that we're seeking to serve in the community. And then the other two are really the two sides of our mission. One is address the immediate challenges of food insecurity in the region, as well as the root cause, much like Khari, you and your team, and really everybody involved on this panel, and probably many in the audience are involved in, is how do we address at the deeper level these issues that are creating poverty to start with. So with the increasing food access, we're excited.
Recording in progress.
We're excited last year that we were able to invest and create the Greensboro satellite that we have, the Greensboro Distribution and Nutrition Education Center on Phillips Avenue. And that has already distributed over 3.3 million pounds. And we haven't even hit our first year anniversary. And that helps with that transportation cost issue, as well as we're working with neighborhood members to say, how can we utilize this as a tool? And as Dr. Cagle highlighted, is that started with a great partnership with Cone Health, and we're looking to build on those types of health initiatives. Sorry if it sounds like I have some back feedback.
Yeah, that's not you. I'm not sure. We've got a glitch here, but sorry that we sort of cut into your remarks there. But just to elevate a couple of them. So again, I heard you say, moving your work $15 an hour mark as well. So that's part of one success that, and again, that's an important thing. And I'm glad that we're hearing this sort of across the board. Also addressing, that challenge of food insecurity, as a root cause, right? So not just as a one-off, but really getting to the root of that. So again, these are important themes, and thank you for sharing that. Sorry about the technical glitch there. I've got 5 more questions and I want to try to move us through. So let's watch our time here. But here's the first of those 5, because I want to make sure that we get to them all. And then there's some good questions in the chat box as well. So to the panel, what is one thing that the individual systems that your peers in this meeting represent could either do or stop doing to help your system better serve people living in poverty? Does that question make sense?
It does. I'm going to jump in and be very quick because Dr. Contreras has done such a great job since she's been here, and we hate to see her go. But more career and technical education. I mean, she's done a great job of building some wonderful career and technical education academies, and more of that is needed as we go forward with our workforce.
Excellent. One thing from the other panelists, I don't know who wants to go next here.
I'll just jump in quickly also, and it's already been stated, but all of us carving out more time to look at collaboration and how to utilize our resources in alignment more effectively.
Well, Excellent.
Yeah, I would add to that what they're saying. Certainly, the signature academies work, and that was a result of the collaboration. As Eric just said, we have to collaborate more. I would also say to the community, we have to focus on what works, and the research on what works, and have the courage to make the changes to our systems, and to support when leadership is trying to make changes based on all of the research we have. It's really comfortable to stay where we are and to keep doing things the same way, but it's not helping to move the needle or helping us have a community that thrives if we keep doing things that led us to this massive poverty in the first place.
Good feedback. More career and technical education, more collaboration, more collaboration, more collaboration. Mary Jo, how about you?
Well, more collaboration. Partnerships work. Partnerships extend our reach. And so find the gift that you bring and match it with another organization that has perhaps a reach that you don't have.
It sounds like we're doubling and tripling down on this notion of collaboration. So maybe we'll have some new things even emerge from this as time goes on. This is good. This is really good. Let's keep moving. So next question. People are increasingly busy. We know that. And everywhere you turn, there's something new trying to grab your attention. So the question is, how are you reaching people in the community to support your work? Who wants to go first?
For better or worse, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse, people are turning to social media. So we're more present on social media than we've been in the past. And so, I mean, you've got to meet people where they are. And what we've seen is that proliferation of social media really helps. Being out there helps get people's attention. I can also tell you, I'll answer for Sharon Contreras because I get a phone call at my house just about every night. She does a great job of communicating with the parents of students in her school system as well, and making sure that we know what opportunities are out there through their phone system. I hope I didn't steal your thunder, Dr. Contreras, but I can tell you that at least in our household is very effective. But you've got to meet people in different areas now where they may not have been in the past, but are on social media and other alternative outlets these days.
Dr. Contreras, it sounds like Brent has tagged you into the conversation. So how do you want to respond to that? How are you reaching people in the community to support this?
So, I really love the author of Just Mercy, Brian Stevenson, who said we have to remain proximate to the problem. So I expect all of us in Guilford County, irrespective of our positions, but certainly my leadership team, to be proximate to the Tanishas of the world. So that we understand the complexities of the life issues facing our children and our families. And then we build communication systems around that. But as well as we're doing, we still are inundated with information clutter and misinformation. And 78% of the residents in Guilford County do not have children in our schools. So they don't get the call that Brent gets. And that leads to lots of misinformation, and in an increasingly polarized world, disinformation sometimes. So we are doing more and more to build those partnerships that you heard Eric and Mary Jo and Brent talk about, so that we have more people spreading accurate information, good information, and then working with us, building that public will to help us to better serve our students and families.
That is an interesting statistic you just laid out there. I just want us to just let that marinate for a second. 78% of Guilford County residents, is that what it was, do not have children in the school system, right? So they're not direct recipients of your information feed. They're not part of your pipeline necessarily, right? Interesting.
That's right. Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting. Eric, how about you? How are you reaching in this atmosphere? How are you reaching people to support your work?
Yeah, well, Brent presented social media, and we certainly have expanded our reach along those lines. But also, a number of years ago, we invested in a community engagement coordinator, and her single job is to be out in community, discussing issues, listening to residents, so that we can reflect our strategies based upon the goals that individuals that we serve have, not the ones that we define for them. And I think that's really critical as we talk about, people reaching their self-determined potential as they have defined it. And that's really critical for us. So, our team leader, her name's Renee, has spent, started a lot of time in Winston-Salem, is now almost exclusively in Greensboro these days, getting to know folks, especially around our center that is there. And it has really benefited us to understand, where people are coming from, so we could adapt strategies that work for people rather than trying to do for them in the way that we define it.
Love that. Love that. Thank you. Dr. Cagle, how about you?
Well, again, social media is a must-have in this area. We also work directly with radio and television media. We have a show on WFMY on Channel 2, but also, especially during the pandemic, whatever news request, we have a team that does that. We also are very involved in advocacy at the local, state, and federal level to make certain that these issues have a voice for us. And then we have lots of leaders at various levels involved with our partners and looking for partners throughout the community and the communities that we serve. So, our leadership is involved in a variety of organizations.
Got it. So all of you just spent some time addressing, how you're able to reach people in the community, and maybe even some other things that might need to happen to help grow that connection. But now, I want you all please to think about how we as a community can support your work. What can we as a community do to support your work? Big things and even small things that you think would make a real difference. Who wants to jump in on this one?
Of course, as superintendent, I have a list of things always. And first, I want to thank the community for being so engaged in the Guilford County schools. And all of us have different talents and gifts and passions. If you want to come help the golf team, learn to play golf at some of our elementary and middle schools, that's something you can do in Guilford schools. Others are more engaged in, organizing and wanting to change policy. Then interact with the school system, get involved, and tell us what you need, what policies are needed to better help students and families. You can tutor in Guilford County schools. You can come and just teach kids about public speaking, or just come once a year and talk about and participate in one of the 128 schools job fairs that they have, where they just introduce the community to different professions. I think sometimes we don't know that little things mean a great deal to our students and teachers and schools. And some of the smallest acts that you think are insignificant have lifelong impact on our students, like seeing a great chemist or, someone in a university president, a doctor, a nurse. It just exposes our students to the world. We're always into mirrors and windows. We want to see that students see their reflection, but also see all the possibilities. So please just reach out to our communications department, reach out to me directly. We'd love to have you in the district.
It's good. Others of you, what can we as a community do, big or small, to support your work?
So I want to
Go ahead, Mary Jo.
I'm sorry, Brent. Again, the community was so generous to us during the pandemic, and I'll be forever grateful and have lifelong friends for how gracious so many of you were to Cone Health during the pandemic when we were running short on PPE. People made masks and got masks for us, and brought coffee to our employees at the end of shifts. Just showed your gratitude to all of our employees for the heroic work they've been doing. So I think about that, and I want to say to you, that's the kind of support you can continue to give us. In other words, what's your passion that you bring every day to the work you do? And then how can we meld that to create a healthier community? For some of you, maybe it's building. Well, one of the things around social determinants of health is having a healthy place to live. And how could we meld that together to think about healthy places to live, to decrease asthma and pulmonary diseases and help people be able to work? There are so many examples of how when we put together our passions, our passion for healthcare and your passion for the work that you do every day, that we could make this one of the healthiest communities, not only in North Carolina, but America. So I would challenge you to think about the gifts that you've been given and bring, and the passion that you bring to your work every day, and melding it with the passion that the 13,000 employees at Cone Health have for the work that they do, and how transformative that could be for this community.
Sounds like the community stepped up in some important ways in COVID, and it sounds like there's still lots of opportunities to do that based off of how you're driven and what your interest is. Some of what Dr. Contreras was saying, even with the schools, right? Some of what you mentioned, Dr. Contreras, were things that happened when I was in school, where we had people from the community come in and sort of give that visibility. And so I'm hearing that those are still effective. Brent, I think you had something to share on.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know that it's something that they could do directly for the chamber, but I think for our community is encourage each other to be the best versions of ourselves. And in many ways, I think Mary Jo was kind of talking about that. In many ways, I wrote down on here, encourage people to go into trades, but I don't know that it's that simple. I mean, just encourage them to be the very best version they can be. As we're on this endeavor to have people trained and ready for jobs that are coming, encourage them to go find where they could get that training, where those opportunities exist. Is that GTCC? Is that a certificate program somewhere? And so, sometimes parents aren't exactly excited when they hear that their kids want to go into a trade. But my favorite night of the year is when we have GAP, which is Guilford Apprentice Partners, and they have a signing ceremony every year where these kids are signing up to be apprentices in these wonderful businesses across our community. And their parents are there just beaming because they know that these kids are going to get a great education. They're going to get a 2-year degree from GTCC at no cost. And they're nearly guaranteed of having a great career once they get all that training. And what a great feeling that is to see in those families, and then again in those parents' faces, how proud they are. There's a lot of great opportunity out there, and we should be encouraging each other to be our best selves and go find what your calling is and get trained for those opportunities.
Our best selves, preparation, readiness, all of that comes with that. Thank you for lifting that for us again. Eric, how can the community support Second Harvest Food Bank?
Well, we speak to the idea of, give, volunteer, advocate, those 3 buckets, but it goes to Dr. Cagle's point. It's about finding your passion. And it's not about Second Harvest Food Bank. It's about the community and finding where you want to plug in. In addition, I always talk with people about, they sometimes feel bad, well, I can't volunteer right now, or maybe someone can't make a financial donation. And I speak to, we all have seasons of our lives where what we can do, changes and evolves. Sometimes we have time that we can give. Sometimes we have treasure that we can, provide. And, often it's, for many folks, it's a combination of that, throughout their life. I do want to, maybe just build on what is said, and the advocate piece is really important. And it goes to Brent's point about being our best selves. I think actually we could help to formulate the conversations in our communities that are positive and talk about solutions and not negativity. We always have to remind ourselves that we are the ones that control who are our elected officials. And no matter of party, we should ask them to be their best selves and to listen to everyone, and that really look at making policy that is not maybe the right political move, but is really the right move for the constituents of the community as a whole. And those are tough things that we need to ask of them, because we need policies that work better for the residents of our community. So building off of the other great comments, I just would highlight that's a great opportunity for us all.
All right, thank you for that. I have two more questions for you panelists, and then we'll hear what's on the minds of our attendees. So let's start with this is the second to last that I have for you. So from a personal perspective, what is that proverbial wall that you keep banging your head against? It could be something that maybe you've just accepted that that's just the way it is. But really, I'm just asking, what is that unsolvable issue that you just keep running into over and over again? Who wants to start there?
I'll go ahead and jump in on this one, is because when I think about that, is the first thing that comes to mind is if you've just accepted the way things are, you shouldn't be in this work. We have to look at potential. I love what Dr. Contreras said about mirrors and windows. We have to think about that we serve as mirrors for everyone that we're around, but we should be constantly showing people those windows. So we have to think about not being frustrated, because frustration is just part of life. I mean, yeah, just like, but from the movie Apollo 13, I always think about work the problem. And that's what we need to do, no matter what it is. And I think together we can figure these things out. Collaborations, as we talked about, we're just trying to push ourselves to think differently about these issues and how we approach poverty, or even pieces of poverty that, to go back to what Dr. Cagle said about how to eat an elephant. We just have to be more creative.
Thank you for that. Others of you, what's that one thing that one unsolvable issue, the thing that kind of keeps you up at night or keeps you banging your head against the wall?
Yeah, I would say there is no unsolvable issue. All issues can be solved, but there are issues that make me bang my head against the wall. And I think it's the lack of flexibility at the state level, which impedes progress and innovation. There are categorical funding restrictions and archaic policies, including those on the calendar, how you can organize the school day on class size and seat time, ways that we can, and if those change, we would have more funding for other issues. I also think that specifically how we approach creating new schools and the funding for that. I think if there was integrated funding, we wouldn't be building an aviation program and building for community college and an aviation high school. When we could just combine funds easily, we would be able to put small high schools at hospitals sites easily. But it's not easy while it's easy to collaborate, it's not easy to come up or break through some of those policy issues. And I think that as much as we say in the state, we are trying to prepare a new and stronger workforce, I think the policies at the K-12 level are real barriers to that for every community. And as Eric said, we need to be pushing on new policies every single day, advocating for better policies.
Appreciate your candor there. Also, thank you for the candor. Thank you also for again, that bit of optimism that you don't think that there are any unsolvable issues, which is good. So the question did assume that, didn't it, the way I phrased it, but I appreciate you raising that. Who else wants to weigh in on this one?
So it's interesting that we're all thinking in the same way. We have in one of our rooms in our innovation center, there's a saying on the wall that says, when you think you've run out of possibilities, remember you have not. And so I think that's how I would approach it, similar to what Eric and Sharon have said. But there are some things that just can get really frustrating. And for me, I would say it's the regulatory environment for healthcare. So very similar, Sharon. And for us, it's both the state and the federal level. So we're second only to radiation energy, nuclear energy in the United States, to being how highly regulated we are. So,
is that true? Is that true?
Oh yeah, that's true.
Okay.
That's true. So it does require some careful thought and planning to move forward with new ideas.
Appreciate that. How about you, Brent? Thank you.
So again, I would say there are no unsolvable problems. I don't hit my head against the wall on a regular basis on any one issue. My daughter asked me the other night at the dinner table, what is it that I do for a living? What do you really do, Dad? And I told her I put puzzles together for a living, because all these economic development projects are different. They have different drivers. They have different needs. Do they need 100 acres? Do they need 500 acres? Do they need 30,000 square foot building? Do they need 100,000 square foot building? What's their labor force going to look like? All of those things are different. What are their workforce needs going to be? All that stuff. So I put puzzles together, and there's always something that you kind of hit your head against the wall on, but we overcome it. That's just the way the world works. You've got to overcome those to succeed. There's no doubt the boom project had a couple of hurdles we had to overcome. Toyota did as well. But ultimately we put those puzzles together and won. So, there's nothing I don't think that we can't achieve in this community when we work together to, as Eric said, work the problem and solve.
Cooperative spirit, it is prevailing. Love that. All right. So here's my last question to the group, and then again we will hear some of the thoughts that are on the minds of our attendees today. But to each of you, what can United Way of Greater Greensboro do to support you or to help bring your respective systems together? Because we've heard a lot about collaboration today and how that's top of mind for all of you. So what can we do to support that?
I would say you have been really instrumental and helpful in providing us with good data about poverty and poverty in communities and needs of the residents of Guilford County. There's data that has not been easily accessible to the school district, and I've called the United Way, and you've helped me pinpoint, where the poverty is, and that helped me, for example, to give out the laptops and devices to families and community members. So I think continuing to provide us with that data is very useful in thinking about which partnerships you need to form and how to collaborate more effectively. So thank you for your work.
Good feedback and helpful feedback. Thank you. Others. So what can we do here at United Way of Greater Greensboro to support the effort?
Quite simply, just continuing these sort of dialogues, right? I mean, today's conversation and engaging the community in this sort of dialogue helps spur new ideas and new partnerships, new connections. The Family Success Center is, in my mind, going to be key to helping us fill those jobs that are coming. We saw a great example in the video at the beginning, and we're going to need many more of those. As you say, 3,000 households by 2030. So keep headed towards that goal.
We appreciate that, and thank you for plugging our Family Success Centers as well. I'll just add in this moment, and still want to hear, of course, from Mary Jo and Eric on this last question, but since you raised it, I'm going to step through the door there. So we are in the midst of piloting what is essentially a scaled but virtual version of our Family Success Center. Same model, still using coaches and working with households to customize plans for their journey out of poverty, but it'll be technology enabled. So there'll be multiple portals of entry. No longer, it won't just be a brick and mortar location, which we still are supporting those and funding those, but we want to expand the opportunity. Many of you have talked about challenges with transportation, and we've heard that feedback from the community and other things. So we'll be piloting that, and there will be an opportunity for us to reach more segments of the county where individuals might not be able to go to Guilford Child Development or Salvation Army, but they can access these sort of resources virtually. And so just wanted to plug that. We call that the ISDN, the Integrated Service Delivery Network. And again, we will be piloting that this year with a full rollout towards the end of next year. So thank you for that. What can United Way do? We got Mary Jo and Eric left to comment on this.
I'll just jump in and thank you. Simply, you all are thought leaders, and we appreciate that, helping, as Brent said, to bring people to the table. I think that has always been the great history of United Way back, over literally the couple hundred years when, I could give you a long United Way history that would bore everybody. But the bottom line is being good thought leaders, as well as helping us to create connections. That's huge for us, helping us to say, oh, you all need to talk with this group or that group, because you have a good awareness about how systems can work together or their potential, and that's incredibly helpful for us.
Thank you for that. Any thoughts on this one, Mary Jo?
Yeah, Khari, I would just say often you can help us prioritize too where the greatest need may be, and that helps us focus. So anytime we can have focus, that's really positive.
Thank you for that. Thank you. All right, so we're doing well on time. We've got about 15 minutes left, at least for the time that we planned, and we're not going to go over. So we're going to treat these sort of like a lightning round in a way. Everyone doesn't necessarily have to speak up on a question, but certainly if you want to, we want to hear your thoughts. And so keep in mind that we've had attendees sort of chatting questions throughout. So some of these questions touch on things that you've said much earlier in the day, but I'll start with this first one. So Dr. Contreras, you had mentioned the bond issue, I believe, that in one of your earlier remarks. So how can we as a community help Guilford County schools with that bond issue? Any specifics there?
Yeah, so I'm going to turn this over to Brent, because in my capacity as superintendent, I can only give information, but not advocate for the bond in one way or the other. So Brent, if you'd help me out.
Absolutely. So go to the polls, vote, go to early voting or go to the polls. I'm one of those confused voters. I think it's May 17th. I think you can at least, Sharon, tell us what the date of the election is. I should know. She's nodding, May 17th. And help us by voting for the $1.7 billion bond issue that will make a huge impact on our schools going forward, and also for the quarter-cent sales tax that will help fund and pay those bonds off in a timely manner. They're both very critical to the needs for our future workforce. Again, you heard me say workforce, workforce, workforce. Our future workforce is only as good as the quality of our schools, and the infrastructure of our schools right now is in critical need. So we would ask you to do that going forward.
So that's good. And I'll just flag here, I'm not going to read it, but if you all scroll through your chat, Emily McCollum posted some supplemental information about the bond issue as well. And yes, May 17th, she did flag that. So you'll see she even included a link in there as well that you can access. So just all of you, if you scroll through your chat, you'll see in one of the earlier postings there.
Khari, I just wanted to point out that early voting begins April 28th. And just a fact that most people don't know, the Board of County Commissioners is legally responsible for keeping the facilities upgraded and in good repair, whether the bond passes or not. So we can do it the less expensive way, or we can do it the more expensive way. And I think that's a point that hasn't been really clear to everyone about the bond, that we're still responsible for the upkeep of the schools. This particular way is less expensive than other means.
Good clarification. Thank you for that. Put this out to the group. Paula Pierce asks, what does workforce collaboration look like from your perspective? So you all have touched on this and sort of nibbled around the edges. Anyone want to dive a little deeper on this one?
Yeah, Brent, I'd say you unmuted, but I'll just mention some. A lot of folks may not realize that we have run a very successful culinary training program for 16 years now with over 850 graduates, and we have explored right before COVID hit of expanding that to Greensboro, although we have historically had a lot of Guilford students. But so it's that creativity, that's actually a collaboration between Goodwill Industries, actually Northwestern North Carolina, Forsyth Tech, but also Guilford Tech gives a path for those graduates to get a 2-year degree because of the quality of the 13-week program they have with us. So we're continuing to explore that opportunity in Greensboro. We've got that kind of on the docket later this year into early 2023. But it is only done by this collaboration because we're not a workforce entity. So we rely on working with folks like the Chamber. Tracy Myers is on our board of directors, which we're so fortunate to have. But also, so we're looking at things that make sense for us in the logistics realm, as well as, forklift operations and that type of thing, so that people have a career path to have success. So again, we don't do this directly, but it's a collaboration, and we are very open to seeing how those types of things may grow.
And so we collaborate with all of the area colleges to help them expand their PA, nurse practitioner programs, CMA, nurse tech programs. We need all of those, and they need a place for them to have their clinical experiences. So we have a collaboration in place. Sometimes we pay for instructors for those programs because the state doesn't fund them well enough for all of the instructors that they need. So we have a collaboration. That's one thing that collaboration looks like. So we are in collaboration in that way.
Thank you.
So I'll take a shot at it. So I'll take a shot at, kind of big picture workforce collaboration. There's two sides to that coin. There's the demand and there's the supply. And so it's making sure that the demand is articulated. We understand it. We understand the qualifications that are required and the quantities that are required. And then it's bringing the supply side along as well into that conversation and making sure that they're turning out the degrees, the certificates, the people at the end of the day that can meet that need. That is going to get even more critical in the coming months and years. And so I think you'll see us at the Chamber start to take but continue those efforts, but ramp them up to make sure that, again, both sides, both the demand and the supply side, are working together to make sure what is needed is being able to is being supplied in the future. Again, back to my initial statement of, we want to make sure that 5 and 10 years from now, our workforce, the jobs in our community have grown and not stayed the same.
Right, and
I would
Brent,
agree.
go ahead.
Yeah, I would say I agree completely with that. And there are so many examples of outstanding partnerships and collaboration throughout the community in Guilford County Schools. But with respect to what Brent just said with supply and demand, they helped us to figure out where we needed to develop programs. And we have created new CTE programs all over the district, career technical education. I think the next phase of that, as I said earlier, is creating these spaces, joint spaces, moving our high schools, small high schools onto industry sites, building on industry sites, because the number of staff available is limited. So if the doctors and nurses and technicians are at the hospital, we should probably have our students there. And just in addition to that, just keep expanding the outstanding GAP program that we have in Guilford County. But as we move our high schools to industry sites, they will have a built-in apprenticeship program. So really excited about the future of Guilford County.
That is good, good follow-up. I'm gonna see if we can slip 3 more questions in before we close out our time. So quickly, this next one really comes back to something that Mary Jo, you said, and Sharon as well. You each talked about workforce shortages. You talked about in terms of teachers and nurses. The question Krista Johnston is asking is, what do you attribute those shortages to?
These are, there's so many issues, but they go back, in fact, decades. So educators specifically in the state of North Carolina have been underpaid in comparison to the region and the nation for many, many years. Now, the legislature has done a lot to improve that, but it hasn't kept up with sort of the stress of the job after the pandemic. And now other industries have a lot more flexibility in terms of the ways in which they work, their working conditions. And educators have a skill set that they can use in other industries. So many are saying, well, my colleague, has a flexible work schedule, a flexible day, and I can go do that and make more money and be home, 2 days out of the week. And that's why I mentioned before the inflexibility of some of our regulations. It's going to cause a problem with keeping staff. We have to have hybrid schools because there are parents that want that now, students that want that now, and staff that want that now. So certainly the working conditions and the salary is causing a problem for us in public education.
Appreciate that. And just Kenneth Griffin, who's logged in, is amening one of your comments, Dr. Contreras, saying that that's a tremendous idea, that what you talked about, getting education on site with companies. He sees that as a game changer. So you got at least one vocal bit of support. Dr. Cagle, how about you? What are you attributing the nurse shortages to?
Well, so there, I'll highlight 3 things. One is, again, long-term. We saw this coming because of the decreased investment of our legislature in our higher education for nursing. Nurses have to be trained by doctorally prepared nurses and master's prepared nurses. And to increase the class sizes, we need more of those nursing individuals. And because the investment in higher education for nursing had not increased, we couldn't hire enough of those doctorally and master's prepared nurses. And frankly, the salaries being paid at health systems were higher. So there was a shortage of those individuals. So those nursing class sizes did not increase. As you all know, North Carolina is a great place for people to retire. And the overall average age of our population was increasing anyhow. So when you look at the average age of the population, it's increasing. The baby boomers are increasing. Baby boomers are more likely to need health care. So the need for nurses is increasing. So you have an increased demand, but a decreased production of nurses. That creates the shortage. And then the pandemic hit. And the pandemic has been extremely demanding and stressful for nurses. And the average age of nurses had increased. So some nurses who had planned to work another 3 to 5 years more decided, no, I'll go ahead and retire now. And younger nurses, fresh out of school, this was not what they expected their nursing career to be. So they decided, no, this is not what I wanted to do. And they have chosen to go do something else because it didn't fit their expectations.
This is good.
Some off the top, some off the bottom. And so underproduction and increased need, and then the pandemic, those three events.
Good context. I think we're going to have to leave it here. I do want to thank you. We're going to wrap up here, but I just want to point out here, Eric, that Second Harvest Food Bank got a shout out in the chat box. Just thanking your organization for engaging with neighbors and with their neighbors in Northeast Greensboro. So just want to highlight that work as well. Great questions, and want to just say thank you to you, Dr. Contreras. Thank you, Dr. Cagle, Brent, Christensen, Eric Aft. I want to thank all of you again. Help me thank them with a virtual round of applause for the time commitment and being present here today. We really do appreciate you and sharing your wisdom and your thoughts. I want to thank you so much for offering again those insights, and I just, you know, as we continue our work, we at United Way, as we continue this work to end local poverty, we are going to remain in touch with each of you to continue these conversations. So thanks to everyone who attended and submitted those great questions. We hope this forum has given you a clearer understanding of what we can do as a community to end local poverty, as well as a clearer understanding of the approaches that your United Way is taking to end local poverty. So before we officially close today's meeting, I just want to double down on our commitment here at United Way to end local poverty. We're not out here raising money and just passing it out, hoping it makes a difference. That's not what we're doing. We're utilizing your entrusted investments to create and fund partnerships and initiatives that are working together collaboratively, as we've been talking about, to produce proven outcomes. We are as willing to invest in and lead innovative solutions as well. So in case you missed it, we recently decided to take our efforts of ending local poverty to the next level. With the input of over 2,000 diverse community members, we developed a bold goal. We launched that back in September to give our community something to rally behind. And that bold goal belongs to all of us. And here's that bold goal. As a community united in equity and lasting solutions, 3,000 households in Greater Greensboro will leave generational poverty by the year 2030. Together, I know that we can, and I know that we will move families out of poverty. So let's continue this conversation. Let's continue to make our community a better place for everyone. I want to thank you again. And as I'll always like to say, onward and upward. Take good care, everyone. So long. Thank you.